Okay, I have this to say as a realization of my own work on my adult child, by which I mean the part of myself inside me that's still scared of something that happened to me that I can't talk about. I'm scared of, this part of me is scared of what will happen if I say something, what it will mean about me if I let those words come out of my mouth and claim everything that comes after that. And as long as we live with that child inside us, unacknowledged, remaining in fear and silence, put into a corner, and essentially ignored, I believe, we will never be able to answer for ourselves internally. What do I want? That is because that child who is silenced and put in a corner, call it shame. It may take on the name of shame. It may not have that name. It's not a word I use, actually, but I can relate and sort of create that parallel to translate it into that language. But as long as that child is in shame and in exile, that we have told that child, you do not have a voice. What you have to say is not allowed and not valid and doesn't have a place here. And yet, we know that child is there. We're very aware of it. We actually spend a lot of energy moving around it, not touching it, not awakening this child. It's like, shh, stay quiet. She's napping right now. And we can't always control our environment so perfectly that never happens. So we are on alert and vigilant, hyper-vigilant, some might say, trying to protect this child. So when we're asked as an adult to make a decision on our own behalf that requires us to know and to claim about ourselves what we desire, what we choose, there's no right answer. No one else has the answer. It's not written in a book because it's the book we're writing. And when we cannot find the answer to that, I believe it's because we won't find it, because we won't allow ourselves to find it, because it would require us to touch and to awaken that child, and we are not equipped to do it. And I don't mean to shame people by saying we're too scared, like, oh, you're a wimp, you're weak. I don't mean it that way. I mean, we have not been given the space, the tools, the capacity, the courage, the allowing that we require to meet that child inside us and to give that child its voice. And it's not about living in the past and living as that child. It's about what happens to us as adults when we acknowledge that child as part of our experience that was not addressed by the actual adults, the chronological adults in our lives. They didn't have it all. We may have believed it or had to believe it based on cultural beliefs and hierarchies and conventions. Again, another layer of forgiving. But forgiving does not mean skirting around the most difficult issue out of anything, which is this child inside us that wasn't taken care of. And now It's our turn. And we think that we can jump over this by choosing the right career, making enough money, kind of juggling it all while not touching that particular container of information. My experience is none of it works. None of it works for long. It works temporarily, then it comes back. This child inside of us keeps coming back, wanting something that we can't name because we have spent our whole lives trying to forget and not finding the language to name it. So this is what I'm finding to be the core of when people come to me or are in the world wondering whether they should develop their creativity, find their voice, allow for more expression, or do the tech job, go back to work, keep paying the mortgage. And it's interesting that in our culture, it's framed as that question. Should I be an adult and pay the mortgage? Or should I find my voice, which means if you're doing that work for real, you will not be able to avoid touching the child that's inside. So this is exciting or it's extremely frightening, and I've touched exactly the thing that most of us avoid our entire lives. I'm speaking from a place of being in the process. And it's a process of touching and getting to know and becoming familiar with that child and learning what it needs, learning what it wants to say. And when you learn what your child inside wants, you learn what you want. And you learn to express what you want. And then all of a sudden, you start growing up. And you can express as an adult. That's what I'm learning right now.